Edogawa Rampo, poisonous plant. It was a beautiful sunny autumn day. One of my good friends came to visit me, and after we had a pleasant conversation, he said, "It's a beautiful day, isn't it? How about a short walk around the area?" Since my house was on the outskirts of town, my friend and I went for a walk in a nearby field. The field was overgrown with weeds, and autumn insects were chirping even in the daytime. There was a stream about 1 meter wide running through the weeds, and there was a small hill. We sat on the hillside and looked at the sky that was cloudless and clear, or at the stream that flowed right under our feet, or at the many, many different kinds of small weeds that grew along its banks, and sighed and said, "Oh, it's autumn." And for a long time we remained still in one place for a long time. Suddenly I noticed a patch of plants growing in a damp spot on the bank of the creek. "Do you know what that is?" I asked my friend, who was not at all interested in nature, and he answered me curtly, "I don't know," but even though he disliked plants and flowers, there was a reason why he would definitely be interested in this plant. No, the less interested a man was in nature, the more he would be attracted to a certain awesomeness of this plant. So to show off my extensive knowledge and to give him something to talk about, I began to explain to him the uses of the plant. It's called XSX, and it's a plant that grows everywhere. It is not a strong poisonous plant. Ordinary people don't pay attention to it because they think it is just a flower. However, this plant is a miracle drug for abortion. This was the definitive abortion pill in a time when there were not as many different drugs as there are today. In fact, it was this plant that was often used as a secret abortifacient by old-time birth attendants. When my friend heard this, his eyes lit up with curiosity. And then, "How is it used?" he asked me very eagerly. "You want to use it as soon as possible, don't you?" I teased him like that, and then unnecessarily I explained to him the detailed use of this plant. First, fold off the stem as wide as the palm of your hand. Then peel the stem and put it on. I explained in detail with hand gestures, looking at the faces of my friend who were listening with admiration. Such secrecy is also interesting to talk about. The abortion story then led to a discussion of whether or not we should control the number of babies born. My friend and I are young people these days in that regard. Of course, we agreed. We are of the opinion that the number of births should be controlled. But such talk takes place in the upper class, where it is unnecessary to control the number of births, and many in the poor are unaware of such talk. In fact, we had a great deal of discussion about the fact that there is a tenement house in this neighborhood that is like a poorhouse, where all the houses have more children than they need. As we discussed this, I thought of the old mailman and his family who lived just behind my house. The mailman had worked for the small post office in this town for more than a decade, earning a monthly salary of only $800, with summer and winter bonuses of less than $400 each. Although he was a drinker who never missed a nightcap, he was a man of extremely disciplined character who seemed to have lasted more than 10 long years without missing a single day of work. Although he was over 50 years old, he was slow to marry, and he had 6 children, the oldest of whom was 12. He should have to pay at least $200 in house rent. Under such circumstances, how will he make a living in the future? In the evening, his eldest daughter, who is 12 years old, carries a bottle of liquor with a serious look on her face and goes to buy liquor for her old father's evening drink. From the second floor of my house, I could see her pathetic appearance every day. At night, a weaned 3-year-old boy cries all night long in a morbid, perhaps baby hysteria, voice of no strength. The girl above him, who is 5 years old, has boils from her head and face, and at night she too cries like a hystery, whether they hurt or itch. I wonder how their 40-year-old mother feels watching them, and she is 5 months pregnant. But this is not limited to the mailman's house behind mine. There are several other pregnant women with many similar children next door and behind that. And there are probably many, many more families in the wider world that are several times as unhappy as the postman's. While we were discussing such things, the autumn sun was already beginning to set. The blue sky had turned to a pale black. The houses in the neighborhood were lit by white-brown lights, and we were sitting on the ground, feeling strangely chilly. So we got up and decided to go home, me to my house and my friend to his. As I stood up, I felt a presence on the hill to which my back had been turned, and casually turned around to see a woman standing there like a wooden statue against the evening sky. At that moment, perhaps because the background was all sky, it looked to my eyes like a very large, oddly shaped object. But in the next moment, I realized that it was something much scarier than a specter, because standing there like a fossil was the poor mailman's pregnant wife, whom I described earlier. My facial muscles stiffened and I could not greet her. She too was staring blankly into the void, not even looking at me. Needless to say, this ignorant 40-year-old woman must have heard our conversation earlier. We headed home as if to escape. My friend and I were silent and did not exchange any parting words. We, especially me, were completely frustrated at the thought of being overheard by an unexpected woman and the consequences. Once home, the more I thought about it, the more I began to wonder about the pregnant woman. She must have been listening to my explanation of the uses of the plant from the beginning. I had given my friend a rather exaggerated description of how easily and painlessly a woman could perform an abortion when using the plant. What would a pregnant woman with many children naturally think when she hears that? To have that baby, she would have to spend out of her hardscrabble life to pay for its upbringing. She is now near old age and has to do the laundry and cooking with the newborn on her belly and the 3-year-old on her back. Even now, her husband, who yells at her every night as if it were a regular occurrence, is likely to yell even more. His 5-year-old daughter will become increasingly hysterical. All of these pains could be taken away without any danger by a single nameless plant. Wouldn't she think of that? What am I afraid of? Am I not a restrictionist in the number of children born? How can it be my crime if that pregnant woman follows my teachings and buries one unnecessary life from darkness to darkness? I can think that way in theory, but theory cannot stop my shuddering. I am just irresistibly afraid, as if I had committed a horrible murder. Unable to sit still, I paced around the house. Then I went upstairs and peered over the porch, overlooking the field at the dimly lit hillside. But the mailman's wife was no longer there. I ran down the stairs, missing a few steps, making noisy noises, quickly putting on my clogs, opening the front door, closing it again, and so on, until finally I had to go to the bottom of the hill again. In the darkness, so dark I couldn't see another meter, I turned around several times, fearing someone was watching me, and headed for the hill. In the gray darkness, black water flowed noiselessly in a narrow stream. In the grass, an insect, whose name I did not know, was making a strange, chirping sound. I nervously searched for the plant. I recognized it immediately because of its monstrously thick stem and thick round leaves sticking out of the low weeds. But when I looked, I saw that one of the stems had been snapped off halfway through, leaving it looking strangely lonely, like a wounded soldier with one arm missing. I stood there in the almost dusk darkness, feeling chilly. I can just picture that 40-year-old woman with the ugly face, always looking like a maniac, slowly descending the hill after we had left. Her face twitched in a terrible determination, and crawling on all fours to pick up this plant. What a funny yet solemn scene. I was so frightened that I wanted to scream and run away from there. And so, for the next few days, I tried to forget about the poor pregnant woman living in the back of the house, although I was still concerned about her. I tried as much as possible not to listen to the gossip of the family members. I would leave the house in the morning and spend as much time as possible outside, playing with friends, going to the theater, going to the movies, and so on. But one day I finally met a pregnant woman in a narrow alley next to my house. When she saw me, she greeted me with a somewhat embarrassed grin. Her smile looked somewhat frightening to me. Her face, gaunt and bloodless, as if after an illness, peeked out of her disheveled hair. The more I tried not to look, the more my eyes looked around her sash. And there, as I expected, but could not help but be surprised, was a belly so flat that I thought it might snap in two, like a starving skinny dog. And there is more to this story. One day, about a month later, I was passing by and overheard my grandmother and the maid having a strange conversation in the room. "It must be the month of the miscarriage," my grandmother's voice said. "Well, ma'am, is it true?" This was the voice of the housemaid. "But you said so yourself. First the postman's wife," my grandmother said, folding her fingers and counting the numbers. "Then Miss Kane Kitamura, and the candy store owner. What is her name? Oh yes, her name was Louie. 3 people in this town had miscarriages. That's why this is the month of miscarriages. How light my heart must have felt when I heard that. For a moment, the world seemed different and strange. I thought to myself, is this what life is all about? As I walked out the front door, I couldn't help but go back to that hill. It was another sunny day with mild autumn weather. A bird whose name I did not know was flying in a spontaneous circle in the deep blue sky. I was able to find the plant without the slightest hesitation. But what a surprise. Every stem had been snapped off at about the halfway point, leaving a ghastly wreck. It could have been a prank by neighborhood children. Or maybe it was not. I still do not know which is the truth.
As I said in my first video, I am very interested in geniuses. However, I am a YouTube video contributor. For all video contributors, the viewers can't be changed by anything. The viewers are special. For me, the geniuses are strangers, but you, the viewers, are not strangers. I think of you as my allies with whom I share the same time. So I feel more familiar with the people who come to watch the videos on this channel than with the geniuses. Thank you for taking time out of your precious time to come. This channel uploads videos of me, Japanese Akinobu, reading Japanese novels, but I cannot speak English fluently. Therefore, I write a manuscript and have an AI voice read it for me. I think AI voice is still in its infancy, and some words may be difficult to listen to. I will continue to study English so that it will be easier for you to listen to. So, I hope to see you again.